Welcome to Insomnia Files. Prepare yourself for the horror experience you're about to endure. Without further ado, let's begin. I was a broke college student, just trying to survive. Trying to buy my first car with money I didn't really have. And after burning through Marketplace and OfferUp for weeks, watching decent cars get sold before I could even reply, I ended up on Craigslist because it was the cheapest option left, and desperation makes you lower your standards faster than you want to admit. That's where I came across this 2006 Toyota Corolla, and even before reading the full listing, I knew this was trouble. The seller proposed a trade, sexual desires in exchange for the car. I remember sitting there staring at the screen, telling myself this was sketchy and that I should move on. But every other option felt impossible, and I needed a car more than I needed pride. So I responded anyway. The messages started normal enough, but slowly shifted. And when he hinted at other arrangements, I felt my stomach drop, because I knew exactly what he meant. And I hated how quickly my brain started justifying it. I'm not proud of that moment, and even now it makes me uncomfortable to think about how desperation can quiet the part of you that's screaming to stop. Before the phone call, I sat on my bed staring at my phone, rehearsing what I would say, feeling embarrassed and ashamed, but also weirdly numb, telling myself it was just a conversation and that I could back out at any time. On the call, he sounded calm and casual, almost reassuring, explaining the arrangement like it was practical, like he was doing me a favor. And the way he spoke made it clear this wasn't his first time having this conversation. He told me to wear red color panties and to be ready. By the time we hung up, we had agreed to meet, and I told myself I was in control, even though everything about the situation said otherwise. When I pulled up to the address, the desperation I'd felt online turned into something heavier, because the place didn't look like somewhere you went to buy a car. It looked like somewhere you went to disappear for a few hours without anyone asking questions. The Corolla was there, exactly like the photos, but seeing it in person made it feel less like a deal and more like a trap I'd already stepped into. He told me to let myself in, but I hesitated. I felt as if I was in too deep, so I decided to go in from the back to investigate the place, and if it was normal, I would enter. As I went in through the back, I saw something I can't unsee. I saw a taxidermied young woman who looked about my age, and her mouth was tied up with her underwear. My heart sank, and I immediately left the house and went back to my piece of shit car that barely ran. I immediately blocked the seller and moved on with my life. I was too scared and embarrassed to tell anyone, so I kept it to myself. I hope that creep got caught. I was a single mom going through one of the hardest times of my life, trying to stretch every dollar while keeping things normal for my kids. And when I found out relatives were coming to stay with us, the stress hit all at once, because my apartment barely had any furniture, and I didn't even own a couch. I didn't want people sitting on the floor or folding chairs, and I couldn't afford anything new. So I told myself I just needed something cheap, something temporary, just to get through the visit without feeling like I was failing. I checked Marketplace and OfferUp first, refreshing listings constantly, but anything affordable was gone within minutes or completely destroyed. And that's how I ended up on Craigslist, even though I already had a bad feeling about it. That's where I saw the listing for a pink velvet couch for $100. And at first it felt like a small win until I actually read the description and felt my stomach drop. The seller went into strange detail about pickup instructions, saying not to knock, to let yourself in through the back, to leave the money on the kitchen table, and then casually added that he preferred selling to women, written in a tone that was calm enough to almost seem normal if you didn't stop and think about it. I stared at the listing longer than I should have, knowing it felt wrong, but also knowing how desperate I was. And desperation has a way of convincing you that discomfort is something you can just push through. When I messaged him, the reply came back almost immediately, short and blunt. No greeting or explanation, just the address and the same instructions repeated again, especially the part about not knocking. By the time I drove there, my nerves were already shot. But the house looked completely normal from the street, quiet and lived in, which somehow made everything feel worse. I walked around to the back like he told me to, my heart racing, and noticed the door was already unlocked, slightly open, like I was expected. The moment I stepped inside, I realized there was no couch at all, no furniture for sale, nothing matching the listing, just an almost empty room and an older man standing off to the side watching me. Before I could even ask, his demeanor shifted, his face tightening as he stepped toward me quickly, and when I turned to leave, he lunged and tackled me to the floor before I could reach the door. The impact knocked the breath out of me, and everything felt chaotic at once. My thoughts scrambling as I tried to understand how fast the situation had turned. He was heavier than I expected, and aggressive, not hesitating at all. And panic took over completely as I fought to get free, screaming and pushing with everything I had. Somehow, whether it was the noise or my resistance, I managed to break away just enough to scramble up and run, my body moving on instinct before fear could slow me down. I ran out the back door and didn't stop until I was in my car with the doors locked, shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. And when I looked back, he was standing in the doorway, watching me leave, like this hadn't gone wrong at all. I drove away on pure adrenaline, pulling over blocks later just to breathe and realize how close I'd come to something far worse. By the time I checked later, the listing was gone and the messages unanswered, like it had never existed. I did end up borrowing a couch from a friend, but that wasn't what stayed with me. What stayed with me was how easily desperation almost got me hurt, and how ordinary something dangerous can look when it's disguised as a cheap deal and a solution you think you need. I had just moved into a new place and money was tight. The kind of tight where you're constantly deciding what you can live without. And after sitting in silence every night, I convinced myself that a TV was the one thing that would make the apartment feel normal. I checked Marketplace and OfferUp first like everyone does, but anything cheap was either broken or already gone. And that's how I ended up on Craigslist, even though I already had that uneasy feeling scrolling through it late at night. That's when I saw the listing for a large TV for $30, and the price immediately felt wrong, but wrong in a tempting way, like maybe I'd finally caught a break. The description was short and oddly specific, saying pick up only come with one person, and mentioning they were willing to trade for other stuff, which sat in my head longer than it should have. I told myself it was probably just someone trying to get rid of it fast, even though the wording felt more like instructions than a sale. When I messaged, the seller responded almost instantly and gave me the address, repeating the rule about only bringing one person and nothing else. No greeting, no details about the TV, no small talk. By the time I drove there, I was already nervous, but the place looked normal from the outside. Quiet, lights on, nothing that would make you turn around immediately, which somehow made the situation feel even worse. As soon as I went inside, an older man with a big, messy beard stepped into view and introduced himself as Jeff, smiling and talking fast like he wanted to control the moment before I could ask questions. He led me toward the TV, but the second I saw it, my stomach dropped, because it looked nothing like the listing. Smaller, scratched up, dim, and clearly not the same one from the photos. When I asked about it, Jeff brushed it off, saying the pictures were old and that this one worked just fine, even though it clearly didn't. While he was talking, I started to notice noise coming from upstairs. Heavy footsteps and voices moving around without any attempt to be quiet, like people pacing back and forth. The longer I stood there, the more trapped I felt. And when I finally said I wasn't interested and tried to head back toward the door, everything shifted instantly. The noise upstairs turned into rushing footsteps, and within seconds, 5 men came down the stairs, filling the room so fast that I barely had time to react. They didn't explain anything or argue. They just closed in, blocking every way out. And I remember realizing in that moment that the TV had never mattered at all. I was cornered, overwhelmed, and before I could process what was happening, they took everything I had on me. My phone, my wallet, anything of value. And the last clear thing I remember is being hit and everything going dark. When I woke up, it was quiet and cold, and for a few seconds I didn't even understand where I was. I was lying on the ground, surrounded by trees, dirt under my hands, no buildings, no streetlights, nothing familiar, like I'd been dumped somewhere far away from where it all started. My head was pounding, my pockets were empty, and it took everything in me just to stand up and figure out which direction to walk. I never saw that listing again, and I never found any trace of Jeff or the house when I tried to look it up later. What stays with me isn't just what happened, but how normal it all felt at first. How easy it was to walk inside because I needed something cheap and convinced myself it was fine. Ever since then, I don't chase deals that feel too easy, because sometimes they're not selling anything at all. They're just waiting to see who shows up alone.